Hey everyone, this is Julian Brutto, your host for the Health Insurance Innovation Summit. We have another session ready here for you with Amy Cueva, founder and chief experience officer at MadPow. Amy believes the design can help improve the human condition, and it was with that mission and vision in mind that she founded MadPow in 2000 with Will Powley, and together they've created an award-winning agency that partners with clients to improve health, help people achieve financial well-being, help them learn and connect. With her partners, Amy's grown MadPow's presence, client base, and revenue, leading to MadPow's 2009 recognition as one of Inc. 500's fastest growing privately held companies. Mass High Tech, which named her one of its 2009 Women to Watch, has recognized Amy's passion, energy, and commitment, and she's been acknowledged as one of Boston's 40 under 40 by the Boston Business Journal for 2014, and also made MedTech's Boston 40 under 40 list in that same year. In this expert session, you'll hear Amy talk about the changes she's seeing in the industry, the need for a collaborative and united front to better serve customers, and the key focus areas for large incumbents as they begin the necessary but painful transformation of changing their operating models, cultures, and processes. I had a great time discussing some of our industry's biggest issues with Amy. I'm sure you'll enjoy this session too. So without further ado, I give you Amy Cueva. Hi, Amy. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So I wanted to start off by touching on something you mentioned in your bio. So in your bio, you say that you're on a mission to improve the human condition through design. So can you walk me through that? How are you trying to do that, and maybe tap into how MadPow works into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started as a graphic designer, moved into web design, and quickly realized that it wasn't about how the websites looked. It was about, were they usable? Were they useful to the people interacting with them? And so in order to make sure of that, I started doing research and usability testing and got into human-centered design. And so human-centered design is basically involving the people who will be affected by the solutions we create in the process of creating them, and not just designing things and hoping they're going to work out. And so I started practicing human-centered design and founded MadPow using that methodology about 13 years ago. And since then, we realized that we can leverage human-centered design to create systems, services, products, experiences, organizations that are human-focused and deliver results to the business and to the target audience. But where we're focusing now is in the area of purpose-driven design. So how do we accomplish social impact with what we're doing? So not just helping people in a financial services realm, for example, check their balances or make transfers, but actually helping them achieve financial well-being. And in health, which is over half of our work, there's so much opportunity to help people change their behaviors, understand their health, and get healthier.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you made. There's a couple of things I want to touch on there on what you mentioned, but the first comment I'll make is around purpose-driven design. I think this is something that is becoming more of a focus for people in healthcare, health insurance. I wouldn't say that people are yet embodying it, top to bottom across their entire organization. But I think it's definitely something that's all the stakeholders involved in the patient's experience, from when they whether they're applying for health insurance or they're actually having to activate it because they've become sick. That whole process, I feel that all the stakeholders need to collaborate more towards one common goal, and I don't feel that we are all moving towards one common goal yet. We're still there's still a little bit of a friction between some of the stakeholders. So I wonder if you can maybe touch on that to say, how can those different stakeholders, so let's take, health insurance as one example and hospitals as another, how can they start to work together towards one common purpose?
Yeah, you bring up such a good point. Right now, the patient is left in the center of a very disconnected ecosystem, and they have to navigate it on their own. And um, you have, like you said, insurance companies, health systems, pharmaceutical companies, they're all serving the same patient, but in very different ways. And as the patient navigates through their health journey, they're touching many different organizations, interacting with many different organizations, and it can be very confusing. So a lot of this is driven by the business model. To your point, many health organizations are starting to try to become more patient-centric, more human-centered. It's difficult for them, though, to transform their process, their policies, their organizational structure, their decision-making protocols to actually yield a more patient-focused experience. But as we're seeing, globally, not just in the US, but abroad, that the move toward value-based care, where we're focused on creating a system that delivers health and that is proactive and predictive, preventative, and instead of one that is just reacting to sickness and treating sickness. Ultimately, that's the direction we want to head. But health organizations struggle, especially in the U.S., where the majority of health systems are the majority of health is still delivered fee for service, and so we want to move in the direction of value-based care, but it's a very difficult shift to make. I think, though, that technology is going to pave the way. So, for example, in the future, we'll be using virtual primary care assistants, or machine learning and artificial intelligence to be that primary point of contact for care, and then humans will be leveraged for more complex cases. And so I think in the future we'll be able to support people leveraging technology and informing them and helping them change their behaviors better than we are now. But many of these technologies are new and don't have proven outcomes yet to the point where they're being kind of adopted at scale. But there's so much opportunity.
Yeah, I have to agree with that point. I think technology is going to be the way to make everything more transparent, to provide a better service to the user. There's an example in the UK of a company called Babylon Health. I don't know if you've come across them before.
No, not yet.
But they're actually featuring on the summit, and they provide it's video conferencing for doctors. So you can, as a user, you can sign up to get their application, and you can get a video consultation through their app, book it online. They can do e-prescriptions. They're starting to integrate artificial intelligence into the diagnostic process. There's still a long way from making it available to the market, but that shift is starting to happen, and I do think that that's going to help the link between the doctors and the health insurance companies, where the information is going to be not freely shared, but it's going to be up to the user to say, okay, that report or that medical information, you can pass it to this doctor, and you can also give it to my health insurance company so they can pay my claim.
Yeah, and you mentioned collaboration. I mean, right now in the industry, there are all these different sources of data. There's genomic data, there's claims data, there's self-reported data, there's data coming in from sensors and trackers, and the data is coming in, but there's not really one central point to aggregate it or to get the data out of, and there isn't standards, for example, at least in the U.S. around for electronic medical records. So, real data mining and using that data to trigger intervention opportunities isn't really happening. I think collaboration around standards in industry would be extremely helpful, so that things can plug together as services as opposed to one-off proprietary solutions. I think that'd be really beneficial for patients and their families. And the other thing about collaboration is it is starting to happen, and people are finding that collaboration is the new innovation. It isn't about the shiny object, but it's about the surprising connections that can be made when two like-minded but different organizations partner together. So we actually did a project with Cigna and Samsung. They partnered up to put a digital health coach on all Samsung Galaxy devices since 2014. And that health coach leverages artificial intelligence to help people set health goals and track toward them. And it leverages the native sensors in the device to kind of track things. So, a big insurance company and a telecommunications giant, you wouldn't think of them collaborating, but they did. And because of that, they're helping a great number of people, over 500 million people worldwide, improve their health. So fantastic things can happen when companies open themselves up to align in terms of purpose and make things happen.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. I didn't realize actually that was worldwide. I thought it was US based. So that's some really impressive numbers.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of the essence of a good team, or a good organization is, yes, you have to be like-minded, but it's important to have that diversity as well. That's where you really start to foster innovation and have a lot of collaborative ideas. So having a telecom company and a big health insurance company, you're right, on the onset doesn't look like a good combination, but when you put those minds together, smart people from both organizations, you do come up with some and will come up with some interesting ideas.
Yeah, and I think mobile specifically is a large opportunity to improve access for vulnerable populations. So to bring greater health awareness and access to a greater number of people. There are a limited amount of humans with a limited amount of time, but leveraging mobile devices, we can reach many, many more people with services that can help them. In the US, those who are lower on the socioeconomic scale, they do have smartphones. They face data limits and such, but they're more likely to have a phone than a home in many cases. And so we're looking to explore how to leverage mobile devices to help people get connected to the information and services that they need. I think oftentimes that population specifically, we underestimate their capability and their desire and their motivation. But we're finding increasingly, as we give people information and tools, it's being used and is very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That companies can leverage mobile to give access to healthcare to a lot of people that today don't have access to it. One particular example comes to mind, and I'll mention Babylon again because they're doing some phenomenal things. They launched very similar platform to what they have in the UK in Rwanda just a few months ago, and that was to provide access to doctors to people that didn't have it. I think in Rwanda, I may be wrong, but it's something like there's one doctor for every 10,000 people. That's just not, it just doesn't work. And so rather than thinking about, okay, we need more doctors, it's to actually say, okay, how can we leverage technology to bring more doctors to care for the people in Rwanda? And I think in the first few months, they had something like 200,000 active users. They grew very quickly, and it's been a very popular service. So that's one example of how a company can leverage technology to bring access to healthcare to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from what's going on with global health in developing nations because what we're seeing happening is that in terms of innovation, you have a very limited budget, and you have to use the assets that are available, only the assets that are available, and you have to get it right. So you need to really kind of understand what's going on with the people being affected by this, the people who will interact with this. What is the most nimble way that we can provide value and launch something short term? And so that focus on truly being lean and creative, I think we can take a cue from in the larger companies where we have archaic technologies, very expensive processes, and it can be hard sometimes to innovate and to leapfrog forward. So innovation on a shoestring, I think we can learn a lot from that. And I think they're actually going to be leading the way in terms of what is possible.
And so I just want to touch on something that you have launched with MadPal. So back in April 2016, you launched the Center for Health Experience Design. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about why you set up this center, what its purpose is, and how things have gone since you launched?
Yes, absolutely. So understanding what was going on in the industry, as we work with large health organizations, we find that there's varying levels of maturity in terms of their adoption and understanding of human-centered design. Some are just getting started, some have very mature practices. So what we wanted to do through the center was to be a resource for human-centered design and experiential innovation to the health industry, providing training and coaching and information and tools and resources. And so the center performs that function, but it also performs a convening, informing, and envisioning function as well. So as you noted, collaboration is so important. When an organization is just looking at the problem from their perspective, there's a whole world that they're missing. And so in the center, we want to foster a community, and we want to create opportunities for collaboration. And so what we noticed is that there are micro communities in health. And what I mean by that is everybody has their specific passion. Some people might be passionate about mental health. Others might be passionate about addiction or rare diseases or helping the aging population or and the list goes on and on. So we've created these 10 affinity groups. And so the center will be convening this community primarily through our annual conference, which meets every spring. The next one is June 20th and 21st in Boston. And so we're convening these communities to share information. And so that's the convening function. And the next one is informing the industry. So what's really going on with clinician burnout and clinician burdenment? What is the problem? And informing the industry around that. And again, getting the perspectives of different stakeholders across the ecosystem. And then finally, envisioning a better way. So for example, in the affinity group, patient experience of the future, we're going to look at, okay, what is the patient experience of the future going to look like, and create that vision with pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, health systems, the government, nonprofits, and patients themselves to kind of put a stake in the ground and help people look at, okay, what might be coming and how might we get there? So right now it's a nascent organization, and we're kind of, trying things out, iterating, pivoting, and the like, and figuring out what is going to be most useful. But we're really excited because we are spinning up projects in the center. One is around preventing opioid addiction through better patient-provider conversations around pain management. And so that's a project we're now launching. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, that does sound really exciting. And like you said, it always comes back to collaboration. And I do think that we're going to see more. We do see more and more of these ecosystems popping up around the world, trying to bring in people from different industries or across, the whole value chain to make sure that we're all trying to overcome similar problems, right? Whether it's at the patient level or when the customer is trying to make a claim, where we're trying to better serve the customer. So I think that we can definitely benefit from having more discussions together and collaborating on projects. So I just wanted to dive into innovation as a topic. So you work with a lot of large or healthcare organizations and large insurance companies.
Yes.
And they're all trying to cultivate innovation from within, right? That's something that they're trying to do. What are the challenges they're facing in doing that? Obviously, they're very big and they've got to transform what is the culture that is already embedded. So what are their biggest challenges and how do they overcome them?
Yeah, you're bringing up a very good question, and again, it's different from organization to organization. What we're seeing happening is, for example, large health organizations, health insurance companies, setting up an innovation lab where a different group of people in a different environment and with a different process and their own budget can go and look at unmet needs and opportunities in the marketplace, try to solve business challenges back on the mothership, if you will. And in other cases, they're looking at creating new streams of revenue for the business and commercializing those revenue streams. So, for example, in health systems and hospitals, the innovation groups will turn doctors into inventors and patent their technology and help them spin out new businesses. So many of the innovation groups are focused on commercialization or on connecting the innovation that's going on in the startup community with what's going on in the organization, seeing if there are opportunities for acquisition, et cetera. What we don't see a lot happening, and we think it will head in this direction, is not so much a playground for startup activity and commercializing new technologies, but an innovation team that's embedded and can serve almost like an agency and a point of evangelism and training for the organization to slowly immerse different parts of the organization in human-centered design and innovation methodology. So we're seeing that more advanced approach to innovation happening at Fidelity Investments, for example, on the financial services side in the US, and United Healthcare, as well as Kaiser Permanente and Mayo Clinic. And so their design team and innovation teams will go out and help out on different projects and arm the business folks inside the business with these tools and processes and understanding to solve business problems so that they can accomplish incremental innovation in the business. I think it's difficult to for an organization to truly disrupt itself, and I think that's a function that the innovation team can serve. So how do we help the business incrementally improve the quality of experience it delivers, the services, the products, the experiences, but how do we also start to disrupt and figure out, okay, how could we really change things and explore new partnerships, new service models that are truly from the ground up built from a member perspective? Because the system was designed, but it was designed by decisions made over years and years and years that all add up to something that is not really human-focused or patient-focused. And so to clear away that residue of past decisions and kind of start new is a good thing to explore for many health organizations.
Yeah, I think that that approach of having a design and innovation team going to the different departments within an organization to almost in a sense give them the new tools and new skills that they can learn to start to tackle some of their problems or launch new solutions is a really great approach, because more and more we're hearing talk about AI, machine learning coming into organizations, potentially taking maybe not people's jobs, but taking certain aspects of their jobs. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's incredibly important that people don't just think that the company needs to innovate, but they need to innovate themselves, right? There needs to be a lot of self-innovation. I think particularly in the insurance industry where, like you said, a lot of these systems are archaic, they're legacy systems. Yeah. There's a lot of roles that are there today that if the company was more efficient wouldn't necessarily be there. So I think that's a really interesting approach to help people actually up their skills or, learn different skills so that it can remain not relevant, but remain valuable to the company.
Yeah, right. There's a role for people, and they can help the organization become more effective. So instead of doing something that a computer could do something better that a computer could do. And you make a good point, because a lot of the work we do with health insurance companies is to look at the current state member experience and identify, okay, what are the points of frustration that members experience along their journey, whether they're, it's in the call center, calling the call center, receiving something in the mail, receiving an email, going to interact with the website, or even just, consuming care. And we typically get involved in website redesigns or redesigning the member portal or creating a mobile application. But the fact is that, sometimes people don't think to go to the website or to do these things. And so we're trying to create models where we call it anticipatory design. We know so much about the member and their care pathway, where they've been and where they might go. How do we provide them information and value as they need it? So instead of having them come to us and having them do the work, how do we do the work for them and kind of present it back in a way that doesn't kind of cross any boundaries, of course, but that can be helpful, so that instead of a call center associate waiting for somebody to call in, a call center associate is calling out, knowing that this person was just diagnosed with a serious condition and may need some support, and can walk them through how that health insurance company can help them through this hard time. So that kind of transition, to your point of how to leverage the human capital in an organization is very important.
Yeah, and I think that that approach of anticipating when a customer might need information and being able to be there before they even ask or come to you, or making it so easily available that they don't have to go looking for it, is really interesting. I'll take banking as an example. You go, you log into your online banking system, and I don't know what it's like in the US, but here in Asia, you log on and there's just information everywhere, right? There's so many different tabs, so many different options. Yeah. The bank has no idea what I'm trying to do. And I think that can often be the case with health insurance companies, because often health insurance company is also a life insurer. They're also a motor insurance. So you go on their website and everything is there.
Right.
So I think that's a really important thing that the insurance companies will be looking at. And I think one way that they'll be tackling that problem is through chatbots. We're starting to see some companies starting to incorporate this. There was a couple of examples in Japan where they actually used it for their claims process. So you could just actually, in a conversation, submit your claim. So they would ask you, what happened, what kind of accident was, if it was motor insurance, what kind of accident was it, take some pictures on your phone as if you were sending someone a photo image, and the claim was done. So that was a really intuitive way for a customer to be able to go through the claims process without having to print off a form, fill in a bunch of questions, all done very quickly on their mobile device using a messaging platform that they're very comfortable using.
Yeah, I think, it's a new, companies worked really, really hard to build for, even 10 years ago, build websites for, desktop web type of situations. And then when mobile came out, it's like, okay, how do we make our website responsive? And now with all of the native technologies built into mobile device, it's just changing the way that we can interact entirely, so that you can have a mixture of chatbot messaging with a call center associate. Then they can call you. You can use the camera on your device. I actually, using my iPhone, filled out a PDF and signed it and sent it right on my mobile device. So it's like you can do everything on it. So it's calling organizations to be where their customers are in terms of the technologies they're already using. And that kind of adaptation and pace, large monolithic organizations are not, they do not find that easy. So it's a struggle for them to keep up with, the emerging technologies.
And so just to wrap up on a question, you touched a little bit on it earlier, talking about the future, but looking ahead, 10 to 15 years from now, what is your vision for what the healthcare or health insurance landscape will look like?
Sure. Yeah, it's such a good question. I think the benefits will be tailored to your specific interests. I think that preventative and holistic services will also be integrated with traditional medicine. I think you'll have one person that you can work with, that you build a relationship with. You'll also be able to leverage a digital coach and digital technology. I think there will be a focus on social determinants of health, emotional well-being, helping people learn how to breathe better, meditate, integrated cognitive behavioral therapy, improving your diet over time, bits of information that help you do experiments on yourself and your health to understand almost how do I achieve optimal performance. Also integrating genomics information, understanding my DNA, what should I be looking at, my family history. So I see, of course, digital companion and support through the entire experience. Being able to book care, virtual care, in-person care. So you'll have this digital support, but then you'll also have really easy access to people, whether it's for, hey, I have a question, or a nurse, or even a clinical support. So a nice seamless blend. I hope that, I see a big opportunity for insurance companies to really be a partner in health for their members and not just the entity that adjudicates claims. So they're kind of, they have a history of being kind of financially oriented, and in the US, a B2B, business to business type of environment. As they become more consumer focused and focused on helping the people they serve be healthier, they will have better financial outcomes. So that shift needs to be made.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we're starting to see that shift. There are definitely, the large insurance companies are starting to see that, healthcare costs are not getting any cheaper. They keep going up and up and up, and there's only a certain level of increasing the premiums that you can get to. After a point, you're just going to be pricing people out of it, and so I do think that they are starting to make that change in direction. It's going to take a bit of time, but I hope that in the next 10 to 15 years, people will view insurers as a partner in their health, and I think that reputation will start to change, because insurers do get they do have a let's just say that their customer satisfaction levels are not the highest.
Yeah, they have a bad rep for sure. And I think in chronic populations, we will learn what are the most effective interventions, whether they're human interventions or digital interventions. And I think insurance companies will start to apply those interventions at scale and become better at helping people manage their chronic conditions. And again, tighter integration with clinical, so through partnerships, I think that's going to help them actually help their populations become healthier and hopefully be compensated accordingly.
I hope so. I hope that will happen, and I think we're heading in that direction. So I think, Amy, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today. Lots of great insights, and really valued your input.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
For everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got lots of value out of it. And until next time, thank you for watching.